To begin the course, we want to make sure we set the proper workspace and the proper work set. So we're going to be using the Training and Examples workspace as well as the Training Imperial work set. If you're doing this course in metric, then you want to choose the Training Metric work set. So we're going to be using Training Imperial, and we want to go to Browse because we already have a file already set up. So I'm going to come over to my Bentley training folder here to creating and editing centerline geometry. I'm going to be using the geometry.dgn file. And once the file opens, you'll see we already have some things already set up in here. So let's just review some of the items that we have inside of this file. So right off the bat, you see we have some geometry that is already drawn. So we have a alignment here that's called Mountain Highway, and this runs north and south. And we also have an alignment over here called Pike Road that runs west to east. Then we also have some existing geometry over here drawn off to the side here that we're going to be creating River Road and connecting River Road to. We also have a river crossing alignment here that we've created. So this represents our river baseline. It's going to cross over our roadway. We also have this green dash square that you see, or this green dash shaped in the file. This is our existing terrain model. So you can see if I hover over that, that's our existing terrain. Okay, so this is really all we need for this particular exercise. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to start creating some geometry that comes off of this mountain highway centerline alignment. And we want to start creating geometry for River Road. River Road comes off of this mountain highway. We'll have some tangents and curves that connect up to this existing geometry, and then we'll connect all that together. Then we'll ultimately come down over here and connect up to Pike Road with our geometry as well. So let's begin with the first exercise here. So one of the first things we want to do is we want to set our feature definitions. So I'm going to go up to Geometry, and we're going to go over to the Feature Definition toolbar. I'm going to select the Feature Definition toolbar. And I'm just going to dock that up at the top of the screen here. And I want to go in, I want to select my alignment folder, and I want to go to select my geometry baseline feature definition, and I want to set that as my active feature definition. This is what we're going to use when we create all of our geometry. So we're going to be using the geom baseline as our active feature definition for all the different pieces of geometry that we're going to create in this course. Okay, so we're just going to leave that up there. And then from there, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in over here to the northern part of Mountain Highway, because what we want to do is we want to create a tangent line that comes off of this particular alignment to begin the River Road center line. Okay, now to do this, we're going to create a tangent line that starts at station 411 plus 00 on Mountain Highway and then extends off this way to the east. So to do that, we're going to utilize Civil AccuDraw along with the line between 2 points command from our horizontal geometry. So first we need to enable Civil AccuDraw. So we're going to go up to the general tools here. I'm going to toggle Civil AccuDraw. And you want to make sure you left click on it, make sure the background appears dark, so that means it's active. Okay, now you have these different Civil AccuDraw functions here. The one we're going to be using is station and offset, since we want to place the first starting point of our alignment at station 411 relative to this mountain highway baseline. So we're going to come over here and we're going to select the line between points command. And you'll notice the heads up prompt attached to my cursor shows the Civil AccuDraw input fields for station and offset. Let's tab to the offset field here because we want to set the origin or the reference element that we're going to be using for our station and offset. So when you do that, notice the heads up prompt says select a reference element or reset to return to command. So we want to select the mountain highway as our reference element because we're going to be placing a starting point at 411 plus 00 at offset 0. Okay, so now we can key in 411 plus 00, press enter to lock in the value, and then press 0 on your keyboard in the offset field, and press enter on your keyboard, and that's going to lock in the beginning point for our first tangent element that we're going to create for the River Road alignment. So then data point to accept. Notice it places the beginning point at 411 plus 00 at the 0-foot offset. And then now we have the ability to either place a distance and a bearing, or we can use another station and offset if we wanted to. What we're going to do next, though, is we're actually going to place the endpoint of this line utilizing an XY coordinate. So I'm going to change the Civil AccuDraw mode to XY. So I'm just going to go over to the Civil AccuDraw menu here, toggle on the XY button. It's going to change my input field here so that I can enter my X and Y coordinates. Okay, so the coordinates that we're going to use, we're going to key in 283, 6895 for the X, and then we're going to press enter. And then for the Y, we're going to use 128, 6059 for the Y. And that's going to lock into those coordinates, and we can left click our data point to accept. And it places our first tangent line, and it's creating a rule. With this particular line, it's creating a rule at station 411 plus 00, so it's maintaining the starting point at that particular station, and we're also creating a rule using those coordinates. Whenever you use Civil AccuDraw, it does create rules, and it will preserve those rules as you go to as you're creating your geometry. So keep that in mind. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create a second tangent line off of this one. And what we're going to do here this time is we're going to go back to our line between points command, and we're just going to snap to the endpoint of that previous place line. But before we do that, we want to make sure we toggle Civil AccuDraw off because we're not using that right now. So I'm just going to toggle that off and close it. I'm just going to snap to the endpoint here. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to key in a distance and a bearing. So we're going to place this line using a distance and a bearing. So our distance is going to be 5025. Press enter on the keyboard to lock that in. Use the right arrow key to toggle over to the line direction field, and you can just type in, for the bearing, we're going to use south 27 colon 57 colon 06 east. That represents south 27 degrees, 57 minutes, and 6 seconds east. So that's why we're using those colons in there. And then we're going to press enter on the keyboard to lock in that distance or that direction and distance, and then we're going to left click to accept. Okay, so we have our two tangent lines created. So now next thing to do would be to create a curve between these tangent lines. So we're going to create a 2,875 foot radius between these two tangent lines. So I'm going to go up to my horizontal tools here, and we're going to go to place simple arc, and we're going to toggle off that. So we're going to place simple arc. We want to select our first element, so we're going to go to select our first tangent element, select our second tangent element. Notice the dynamic arc that is applied to those two tangents. Now the heads up prompt is also asking us for a radius, so we want to use 2875, so we're just going to key that in and press enter, and then we're going to left click through the prompts. When the trim/extend option comes up, we want to set that to both because we want to trim off these extra pieces of geometry there, those extra tangent pieces. So we'll left click to accept that, and you'll see the geometry is trimmed. Now sometimes it's necessary to create a curve off the end of an element rather than in between elements. So this next little exercise, we're going to create a floating curve off the end of this tangent line here. So I'm going to go back up to my horizontal tools here, and we're going to do arc from element this time. We're going to do a simple arc from element. Okay, so we're basically floating an arc off the end of this tangent line here. Okay, so it's going to prompt you to locate an element. So we're going to pick this element here, and it's going to prompt you to enter a start point. So our start point needs to be here. So I'm just going to snap to that. And then at our heads up prompt, it's going to prompt us for the radius. We're going to key in 2425 and press the tab key or the enter key, and that will lock in the value. And then we're just going to position the cursor somewhere over here. And then for the arc length we're going to use, so we're going to use 1550 for our arc length. So we're going to key in 1550 and press enter to lock in the value. And then we're going to data point. And then for the trim extend option, let's set that to back. So we can use the up or down arrow keys on your keyboard to set the option there. So I'm going to select back and then left click to accept. And then that creates the curve that is tangent to this back element here.